Just wanted to introduce today's moderator. So Professor Terry Shirley, he's a senior lecturer with meteorology and over the undergraduate program as well. So really helpful in putting this event together, and knows Chris as well, from work with him as a student. But he's going to be our moderator for today's event. Really excited for him to be a part of it as well. But again, thank you everyone to being here. Thank you, Chris, for being here as well. And I'm going to turn it over to Terry and take it away.
Hey everybody, thanks Tanner. Well, thanks everybody for showing up today. This is a great turnout. Thanks Chris for doing this for our students. So I thought I would introduce Chris by telling you my experience with Chris in the classroom. So I started working here at UNC Charlotte in 2006. And so Chris was right in the first group of students that I ever had here. And I can honestly say I've taught here now for 15 years. And I do not believe there's been a student that has asked me more questions in class than Chris did. And so during synoptic, during all of my classes, I would turn around and Chris's hand was up. So it turned into, there were so many questions, good questions at that my response turned into, well, what do you think? And in fact, last night, I went back and I looked through some of my old emails with Chris, and I saw one from 2009, and he said that should be written on his diploma from UNC Charlotte, is "you tell me." And that was my standard response to him in class. But what I will say about Chris is that I remember your senior year, getting a job offer early on in your senior year from a station in Savannah and coming to my office and talking to me. And you want to talk about work ethic. Chris would go down to Savannah for I think it was like 3 days a week, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then drive back to Charlotte, take his full load of classes during the week, then drive back to Savannah and spend 3 nights there doing that for weeks and weeks and weeks through his senior year. So that's the motivation and the work ethic that I remember from Chris. So really awesome to have in the classroom, really great to follow your career, because it always makes us proud when we see students so successful down the line. So hopefully you can share some of that with our students today. Yeah, and so welcome back in this virtual sense. And so yeah, so you can take it away, and then we'll follow up with some questions at the end of this. So yeah.
Well, sounds good. Thank you, Terry. Yeah, I think I was the guinea pig some of the time. Okay, most of the questions were mine, but I think when you look at where we were in class, so hey, ask Terry that, and I think Dr. E's on here too, dynamics. So you guys can hear me all right? Yeah, everybody can hear me?
You're good.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So yeah, UNC Charlotte, I love to come back. We've been back once or twice here or there. A big Panther fan, so love to get back whenever I can. But for me, like Terry said, it was figuring things out, and I got a lot of your questions here. So before I get started, I want to kind of know who I'm talking with. First of all, who is going in the broadcast kind of way? Maybe raise your hand on the raise hand icon, or maybe just say hello real quick. Are there any broadcast folks in here, Terry, or is it mainly the National Weather Service?
Yeah, it's quite a mix of students, I would say. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Well, that helps. Are most folks in here seniors, juniors, sophomores, freshmen?
I'm looking at the face. I'd say a lot of juniors, a few, seniors and juniors for the most part. I would say a couple underclassmen. Yeah.
Cool. I can see Terry, but I can't see anybody else. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong here, but there we go. So anyway, I'll get going. So for me, when I was in my junior or senior year, I knew that I needed to kind of get an in the field that I wanted to go in. And for me, it was broadcast meteorology. I love the science. I love being able to figure out what it's going to do, but I wanted to be able to tell people that weather. I wanted to be able to let people know what it was going to do. So when the big storms come, I want to be out in front of it, telling folks, hey, it's going to be severe. Hey, it's going to snow, or hey, there's a hurricane coming, could impact your vacation. But for me, I knew I had to get in. And in the TV industry, everybody says, I want experience. Well, how do you get experience without getting that first job? So my first in, I guess, was to get a behind the scenes job at WSOC in Charlotte. You guys turn on ABC tonight. WSOC, Steve Udelson is the chief meteorologist there. I was able to get in to the station there in 2006 as my sophomore year. Freshman year summer, going in and know that, hey, I've got a job in a TV station. I was running audio, and my hours were on the weekend, 5 a.m. until noon. And then I would have off for 2 or 3 hours. And then I'd go back from 4 p.m. to midnight. So they split shift, and it was both Saturday and Sunday. So class all week, working there in the studio on the weekend. So what it helped me do was when Terry had a ton of homework, or Dr. E on here had a ton of dynamics homework, which if you're in those classes, you know that one problem can take an hour or more of work. I was able to be at the studio. It was quiet. I didn't have my roommates to kind of be distracting me. So that definitely was a plus. But it enabled me to kind of concentrate and study. I think of the questions I was going to ask Terry on a Monday morning. So that worked out sophomore and junior year. And then as I got closer to my senior year, I knew, it's getting closer to me trying to find a job. And at that time, you sent out DVDs, or, it's kind of the tail end of VHS, which shows date there. But you'd mail these things out. You'd have to. They want YouTube links for some reason. It was all DVD or old VHS. So anyway, I knew I needed a tape of me doing the weather, and that's where after working with Steve Udelson for 3 years at WSOC, after he'd get off the air at 6 o'clock and he'd go to dinner, I'd go into the weather center, and I'd sit there and I'd make my own graphics. I would look at the forecast sheet that he had and compare it to what maybe I was forecasting, get some practice that way, see how he handled the same graphics that I was going to build. Sometimes I would get to where I would build him a graphic for the 10 or 11 o'clock news. So, and then maybe I was going to go this route with it, and Steve took it a whole other route, and I'm like, man. But that's how I learned was basically mock newscasts and seeing how I would handle a certain situation. So anyway, I got to my senior year. I was still working at WSOC. My hours were a little bit different then. They had eliminated the weekend job, and robotics kind of took it over. So my job then was Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays at WSOC from 4 p.m. to midnight. So I would go to class, and my last class my senior year was kind of one of those, I don't know if they have them anymore. It was a baseball class. Literally, we played baseball on Thursday afternoons. It was kind of neat, baseball history. Maybe it's still there. You can take it. But I would have to leave right after that and go to work. But I did that. And again, it was monotonous, but it landed me my first job, as Terry mentioned, in Savannah. I started sending out tapes January of my senior year, and sent out probably 40. And I would go to class. Terry and Dr. E would say, "Have you heard anything?" No, nothing. I did hear from one station, and it was in Great Falls, Montana. And I'm not familiar with that part of the country. I had to honestly look it up on a map, and started looking up the weather there. And it was cold. And the news director there was trying to sell it to me as great skiing, great buffalo hunting. And I'm like, what am I going to buffalo hunt? And the rent, get this, the rent was $300 a month there in Great Falls. So just wild. I'm like, what is this place? So I was like, okay, well, I kind of tried to defer. I was like, I don't have another job offer. And obviously can't take anything until May when I graduate. So I was able to kind of put them on hold, and it got to about February, and they said, why don't you fly out and at least see if you like it, and then maybe we can get you under contract. I was like, oh, okay. Can't hurt to fly out. But one of the other mini tapes that I had sent out was to Savannah, Georgia, and I followed up with them, and that's what I would urge you guys to do. And we'll get to that in the questions here in a minute. But whether you're in broadcasting or not, you've got to bug these people. I mean, there's so many emails that they see a day. You've got to stay on their radar some way. And I used to think I'm annoying them or whatnot, but if you show up on their mailbox, I mean, they're at least going to know, hey, he's still interested. And maybe they don't get right back to you, but you're still in the ball game. So I just sent one of those follow-up emails, and I followed up with a call, and the news director actually answered. And he was an old timer in the business, and he said, "What are you doing this weekend?" I was like, "Nothing." What do you need? And he said, "Why don't you come down and give it a whirl?" And I'm like, "Give it a whirl? What does that mean?" So he said, "Come down." So it was a Valentine's Day weekend of February 2009. I remember it because I did a forecast for it. Came down, he put me in a hotel, left class on Thursday night, didn't have Friday classes for whatever reason. And it worked out well. So get there on a Friday, stayed all weekend, and that was my tryout, so to speak. And they hired me right then and there, but it wasn't full time. They said, we're going to hire you on a part-time basis, and after you graduate in May, we'll reconsider full-time employment. So I knew, okay, I need benefits, insurance, and part-time living is not going to pay the bills. So So like Terry mentioned, I would do class all week, and then literally either Thursday night or Friday morning, I would hop in the car and head south towards Savannah, a 4-hour drive, stay in a hotel and live off of peanut butter and jelly, which was hard to do in downtown Savannah. If you've ever been, there's so many great restaurants. Living on the salary that I was living on, you spend all your money on gas and eating out. So anyhow, I made some great friends and wanted it to be my home after I graduated and got to May and honestly didn't have any idea of the way they were going. So spring break, I remember I kind of made my pitch to them. Hey, I've got spring break off. Can I fill in for the chief? Can I fill in for the morning? Does anybody want a week off? And they said, sure. Why not? So I got the big shows. So not only just the weekend, but I filled in the whole week on my spring break there last senior year. And I was able to prove myself. And it just so happened that a reporter was moving on to another station, and they said, hey, full-time employment's opened up, but you're probably not going to like it. You got to be a consumer a reporter during the week, report about the economy and stuff like that. I said, man, that's not my wheelhouse. I don't have any skills or interest in that. Journalism I'm interested in, by default, but I didn't have a clue how to be a reporter. So they said, well, we're willing to try if you're willing to try. So signed a contract right then and there, and graduated early May, moved on down, got an apartment, and started my career as a consumer reporter and part-time weekend weather anchor. It wasn't ideal. 3 out of 5 of my days was not doing what I love to do, but I was able to do what I wanted to do on the weekend. And the first weekend I was there, my wife was working there as a sports reporter. She was into sports, and we met that summer and started dating anyway. So fate would have it that everything kind of fell into row there. Now we've been married 8 years and have 2 little kids, 3 years old and 5 years old. So everything kind of fell into place there. And I guess just trusting that it would all work out and just giving it a go, especially that first job. It may not be exactly what you want in the town that you want, although Savannah was a lot better than Great Falls. But it certainly was a great place to be. Did that for a 2-year contract, and my goal was to get back to Charlotte, and that was my end game. I said, I love Charlotte, love Lake Norman, love the Panthers, close to home where my folks are near Asheville. So Charlotte was my goal, and got a job there. Fox Charlotte hired me, and a 2-year contract. Went back to Charlotte and said, this is home. This is where I'm going to stay. And long story short, the lesson on that is your dreams don't always work out. I stayed there for 2 years, was knocking out of the park as far as I was concerned. I was the sciencey type, and Fox, if you look at kind of their stations, they're a little more fun and kind of less science, more kind of have fun with it, which is a style. It's a strategy for TV to kind of get ratings, but it wasn't me. I'd try, but a little bit dorky probably. So they didn't appreciate the science of it. And when my 2-year contract came to an end, they said they were going to let me go. And they replaced me with a very talented traffic anchor, but no weather knowledge whatsoever, no meteorology, never had an interest in meteorology, but was great in the chroma wall, was great at explaining what's going on. It was just a direction they wanted to go. And I was devastated. Honestly, it was, for me, it was, do I need to move cities move out of the city that I love, I wanted to spend forever with, raise a family in, or do I follow my career? And my wife was instrumental. Hey, throw your name out there and see where it goes. So literally back to the drawing board, sending out, this time YouTube links, thankfully. But sent out YouTube links and applied to all of these jobs, and actually got a better job in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a very similar market, 2 to 3 markets away from Charlotte. And if you don't know, TV markets are measured by population. New York City's number 1, LA's number 2. Charlotte right now is 23. Where I'm at in Greenville and Spartanburg and Asheville, our market's 35. So they measure them in markets based on population. And Nashville was 27. So it was just a small drop from Charlotte, but it was a bigger job. Completely meteorology, and I knew there'd be lots of severe weather. So that was where I got my severe weather expertise. We were happy to stay in Nashville probably forever. And then a job opened up where I'm at now at WYFF 4 in Greenville. I'm at the NBC affiliate in Greenville, South Carolina. And it was a dream job. This is where I grew up. This is the legacy station. This is the by far the dominant #1 station. We've got our own radar. We've got a helicopter. We've got all the bells and whistles. And the guy that I watched growing up, John Seserich, knew me from growing up and whatnot. And he said, "Come on, there's a job open." So I threw my name in the hat, got it right away, and we moved to Greenville. And I worked 8 years under John. And when John retired, they promoted me to his position, Chief Meteorologist. So, it was I guess a road to get here, but it was a road that, I wouldn't change a thing. At one time I thought maybe I was going to find a different path, but pushing forward and you're going to have those setbacks in life. And I would just urge you that whenever those come, to push through and to trust your gut and to, have somebody, like my wife, my friends, my family that would say, don't give up. What are you doing? I had a couple of job offers out of the business in Charlotte, and, I could have taken those and probably been fine, but it wouldn't have been my passion. Each day I go to work, it is fun. I can honestly say that. And if you can find that, I'm sure Terry would tell you that. Dr. E would here tell you on that. Find a job that you enjoy. Because each day you go to work, it's a lot of your life. 40 hours a week is a lot of time away from your family and your loved ones. So to do something that you enjoy really is a lot of fun. And for me, each day is a new challenge. This year especially, which I'll get into in just a moment, but it's a new puzzle piece to follow. It's a riddle to me to try to figure out what it's going to do. So that's my path where I've gotten to from here. And I will say that, when you're in the thick of those, you are getting close to exams. You're in the thick of it right now. And some of those classes are so hard. I tell you what, what am I doing? Just push through, because it gets better. Each class builds upon itself. Dynamics 1, it may sound horrible, and Dynamics 2 is not going to be much easier. But once you start building upon it, it clicks. I don't know what it is, but a light bulb clicks. And, Terry will tell you, when you get the concept and it finally just sits, I think light bulb clicks and you got it. But it probably takes repetition. It takes, honestly, practice, and forecasting is 100% all about practicing and getting better by getting it wrong, honestly. So that takes me to this year, and I had prepared a video that, unfortunately, with all the election stuff, that our editors couldn't get it together. But I wanted to show you kind of our year in the Carolinas as a whole, and you guys would be able to attest to that too, because we've had so much severe weather. Active weather in the Carolinas. I don't think there's been a more active time. I went back and I looked at the records. In May of this year, the National Weather Service office in Greer, which covers Charlotte all the way to where we are, had issued 51 tornado warnings for their warning area. That was more than any year on record for our area, and an entire year would normally bring 13 tornado warnings. So you look at a whole year, 13 tornadoes would be normal. Tornado warnings would be normal. They had issued 51 tornado warnings, and they're very big on trying not to have false positives or putting a warning out there and it not being accurate. So that was a lot. and if you know TV, you know that whenever there's a tornado warning, we're on constant to warn people where it's going step by step of the way, so that they can get to their safe place. And now a lifesaver are these cell phones. People can stream it on their phone. You're telling them town by town where it's at. They know they can come out. They need to know they can go back. So this year has been anything but normal. And for me, John retired in November of last year. So I took the new position in December of last year, and it was a drought. We were sitting pretty. December was fun. And then January hit. And I said, wow, John, you picked a good time to retire. But for me, it was a way to kind of jump in the deep end and just, hit the ground running. And January 9th, we had a tornado outbreak here in the Western Carolinas, and I think a lot of that went toward the Piedmont as well. But we had 11 tornadoes across parts of the Carolinas on January 9th in the winter. And it was one of those situations where personally, it was a Saturday. So I was supposed to be off. We had a long weekend, and my wife and I got in a cabin in Gatlinburg, Sevierville area, where we would take my boys and just get out of town for a little bit. And I said, Lauren, I don't think I can go. This looks really bad. So she went and checked in and took her dad with her. And I kind of held down the fort here and sat there and watched it as the day went on. I said, we're 75 degrees and it's January 9th and it feels muggy out. So something's not quite right here. And sure enough, one tornado warning, another tornado warning. So I was on air for almost 7 hours that day, tracking those tornadoes, and it didn't stop. You get to April, and out of my entire career, 10 years, 11 years, in April of 2020 is by far what stands out to me the most. And talking with John Sesarich, he had worked at this TV station as chief meteorologist for 28 years. We're still very close. He had never seen anything like the setup we had in April of this year, locally in the Western Carolinas in Greenville. We had the ingredients come together. PDS, a particularly dangerous situation, tornado watch box came up. You don't see that often here. SBC put out a high probability of large tornadoes you just don't see that often. And for me, being able to communicate that to the community was my goal leading up to it. I knew that it was going to be bad, but you also don't want to get on there and cry wolf. You don't want to have people alarmed and then nothing happens. And then the next time they're like, yeah, right. We're not going to trust this guy. So, at first you're careful until you get a little more confidence. And I can remember it was Easter Sunday night, April 13th, going into the 14th there. Just unbelievable. The ingredients we saw come together and the temperature started rising. I'm on at 6 o'clock and it's probably 60 something degrees. The wedge was breaking down. And then by the time we got to the 11 o'clock news, it was 75, 76. It just continued to get more and more unstable. So I remember at 11 o'clock, and it was a gamble. It was kind of a risk to take on there. But I said, I want somebody in every household in the Western Carolinas to stay awake tonight. That's pretty bold to ask people to stay awake. How good are the ratings going to be after a whole night where people stay awake all night and it rains and maybe thunders? It was one of those situations. My boss, do what you got to do. And I said, look, this is going to be a big enough event that I think you need to have somebody be a weather watcher, at least stay awake so you can wake the rest of your family awake. These nighttime tornadoes are by far the most dangerous because folks are sleeping. And to get that out, people will keep their phones on or they won't. And a lot of people don't have those settings set. So you and I, we're interested in weather, but when you look at that, a lot of people don't. So, thousands and thousands of people did that. And at 3:10 a.m., we saw the line come through. One tornado touchdown, another tornado touchdown. At one time, we had probably 4 tornadoes on the ground at the same time. And we get word from the National Weather Service, and it's nighttime, so they didn't have spotters. What they saw was a debris ball, and they said a large, violent tornado is on the ground in Clemson, South Carolina, which is a very populated area for us. Some kids are back to school at Clemson, and it was moving northeast toward another populated town called Seneca, around Lake Hartwell and Lake Kiowee here in our area. Saw that come through. We tracked it go through. We were able to see the debris on our radar, our own Doppler radar, the National Weather Service radar. So we knew we had an extremely dangerous situation. And I can remember it went over a plant that Borg Warner is what it's called. That they manufacture metal. And as it went over it, you saw just the bright banding on the radar. And I mean, it was like that something big just got hit. And it was the tin from the roof ripping off and flying around. And we knew at that time something big had happened in Seneca. Now, normally that place would be packed with 200 to 300 workers. Due to COVID-19 furloughs, there were 5 people there that night. So what a blessing that was. One man lost his life. He was a security guard, and he tried to run into safety, and the building he was in collapsed. And that tornado continued on into Seneca and then lifted as it got toward Greenville. We ended up with 7 other tornadoes that night, and EF2 to EF3 range. The one in Seneca and Clemson was a high-end EF3. It was just 4 miles per hour away from an EF4. So just unbelievable. 2020 would have it. 2 weeks later, another high risk for tornadoes. We ended up with another situation where 5 supercells were rolling across the upstate, and it was during the evening, and you could see them on our sky cam. It looked like we were in Kansas. I mean, you could see off on we had our sky cams pointed. You could follow those things right there on the sky cam and on the radar. And we ended up with a very large tornado touchdown. It was an EF2, high-end EF2, almost an EF3. Touchdown in Greenville, South Carolina, our most populated city in our area, 2 miles from our TV station. And when it touched down, it knocked our power out. And we're in the dark. Our generators are meant to power our station for 2 weeks, but it does go down and comes back up. And you knew something had happened at that point. I live on, 5 miles from the station. So for me, that tornado was between the station and my home where my wife and kids were. And my wife is a rock star. She's so into weather by default now that they were in the closet. They lost power too. They're watching on the phone. So, she's watching it. She's following it. I know she's safe. There have been many times where I've said, Lauren, you need to get the kids and you to safety. And when I worked in Nashville, I did that before we had kids. I said, this is going right for downtown Nashville. You need to get to safety. I don't care. I'll talk to her on TV if I have to. But that night was just wild. To have it touch down between my home and the studios, and to knock out the power in our studios, that damaged many, many homes. And I always like to, as a way to learn after these tornadoes go through, is to go and tour the damage afterwards. It helps me see the power of what I was talking about on TV, to speak to these folks, to hear their stories, to hear what helped them, what they wish they had known more of. And every single one of them appreciates early warning. And that's what my strategy is as a chief meteorologist, is early warning. There's a fine line between hyping, and there's a fine line between, I'm going to let you and your family know that this could be pretty bad in a few days. I'm going to let you know if that threat changes. And that's always my goal, is to let somebody know, hey, it could snow in 5 or 6 days. I'm not going to show you some off the wall GFS map that shows 15 inches for Charlotte, but I'm going to tell you it could snow. I'm going to watch it. And as we get closer, say, hey, some of our models are saying it's going to snow a lot. And you just got to watch out for those, because, as we all know, there are plenty of us weather enthusiasts out there that don't have the training that we have, and they're all on the internet. So you really got to be very careful with that and not become one of them and just share stuff that's clickbait, so to speak, but to truly inform people. And they get the difference, okay? And I'm all about some snow, but my goal is to let people know, hey, this could impact you. Snow's a little more fun, unless you're driving it in 85, but severe weather, hurricanes, that type of thing is a different story. So early warning that, hey, something's coming is very important. So that's part of my strategy and my goal as a meteorologist. And, I'm still in touch with a lot of friends that were in meteorology with me. We were at the very beginning. I'm not sure what a graduating class would look like. Terry, maybe you can tell me a little more, but we had probably 25 to 30 in our graduating class. Is that about what it would be now, or is there more?
Yeah, so this year, actually, we have the most number of undergrads in our program that we've ever had. We have 110 undergrad meteorology students. So it's about 20 to 30 now per class, especially freshmen and sophomore this year. So yeah, it's grown a lot.
Very good. Yeah. I think when it came to graduation, I had by the skin found a job. Some of us did, but I can probably count 5 that probably found a meteorology job right off the bat. The market is very tight, and you've got to be willing to kind of be aggressive, and you've got to be willing to set yourself out. You got to have that little extra notch. And for me, I knew that needed to be working at a TV station, having that on my resume, and have a way to make that resume tape. At the time at UNC Charlotte, we didn't have a chroma key or anything, any ability to be able to make a resume tape. And I think Brad Panovich has been very instrumental in helping you guys, and your technology has grown a lot in 10, 11 years. So that's amazing. And I'm so excited for you guys for that. You do need to have a way to set yourself apart. And I would make it well-rounded, and I would start early. For you freshmen or sophomores, I would have a way to get an internship at the National Weather Service office in Raleigh or Greer. Try to get an internship at Duke. COVID's kind of made things a little more tough with that this year, but there are ways to kind of, broaden your horizon a little bit. And that would be my biggest thing, is you are competing with a stack of people this big, and you've got to find a way to set yourself apart, especially for that first job. Once you get that first job, I won't say it's gravy. and you don't make a lot of money your first gig. I will tell you that. I think the first gig in Montana, just being frank with you, it was below 20,000. I want to say it was 17 to 19,000, somewhere in there. You just don't. You probably make more at Chick-fil-A. But it gets you in the door there. As you get more experience, it definitely goes up. But I'll tell you, it's worth it. And for me, I consider those first 2 years a grad school in essence. I'm kind of paying my dues. I'm eating peanut butter and jelly a lot of ramen noodles, a lot of chicken noodle soup, but I'm able to get things going. So anyhow, set yourself apart would be my biggest advice. And I think there's some questions that were on there too. But Terry, is there anything I missed that maybe you'd want to hear along our way before I get the questions?
Well, I figured I'd ask you a few of the student submitted questions, and then we'll open it up if students have questions, if they want to type them out, or I can call on folks. I figured that's how we do this. So this first question is kind of loaded, so be very careful how you answer this. One of the students wanted to know what your favorite class was at UNC Charlotte. Answer carefully.
Who's still on here? Dr. E's still on here. Yeah, he is. There you go. Honestly, and for me, you made me a better forecasting, starting at those early stages of gathering that. And you were always big on practice. Pick a city. We had those forecast competitions with other colleges. Do those and more. I mean, I was so at the very beginning stage, and I won't make this too long, so I want to get more questions. But at the beginning of my career, I was so particular on it, and I still am. I want to be precise, but for me, I've got to communicate those threats, and I've got 3 minutes to do it on a TV show. I'm not in the National Weather Service making sure my numbers verified to the 10th degree. But for me, I was ticked off if it was 72 and I was 70. I mean, it came from those forecasting competitions. For me now, if I'm within a degree or two, I'm going to be okay. But if I blow a rain forecast, or if I didn't at least communicate a threat for severe weather and we get a pop-up, spin-up tornado, I'm going to be a little ticked at myself. So it's more about impacts and how I display those, but forecasting. I'd say forecasting.
That was an acceptable answer.
Good.
Synoptic was the other alternative answer.
Synoptic was good.
Yeah. So another student asked, and this is also a good question, is that what are things that I guess you've learned in your career that you didn't learn in college? The things that, I could speak to that too. Like for me, it was, when I got out of school, I really didn't take many classes in communication and speaking, writing, things like that. So I learned that along the way. So are there other things in broadcast that you've learned that you didn't necessarily learn in school?
And for me, I think it was a frustration just by the way of the rules back at that time. I remember sitting in your office and in Dr. Etherton's office. They would not allow us to take communication classes at the time because it was kind of cross, you needed to be declare a major over there. But I know I'm a meteorology major. I'm sure there are different rules nowadays, but I was not able to take any communication classes or any journalism classes without declaring that or taking all those classes. I would have had to take a whole other year of college. And for me, I said, what, I'm going to just jump in into the deep end at a TV station, and learning that at WSOC behind the scenes was vital. How people talk, how they carry themselves, how to be confident in a group. And I think those are things I learned through those jobs. For me, I never took an internship. It was a paid gig, which definitely helped. But something in that field, even if you're sweeping the floor, whatever it might be to get you in the door. There's so much around here, NCDC in Asheville, Duke Energy nearby. I mean, there's so much you can do to kind of just get the foot in the door and just kind of watch and learn. That'd be my advice.
Yeah. And nothing has changed. Students can still not take communications classes unless you're a major. What I will say, though, is you brought it up before, but Brad Panovich now teaches our weather communications class, which has been really great. And he allows students to intern there and whatnot. And then through the Levine program at the university, we've built our in-house studio. Now, this year, McInerney is under renovation, so everything's and we're not even on campus anyway. But in the future, there will be a studio there that students can practice and help each other with that too, which I think the peer mentoring is also a big thing that was lacking when you were in school.
Very nice.
That's good. So another question one of the students had asked was, and I'm interested in this one too, is the role that social media plays in communicating weather, so that was the question, and more so, where do you see it going in the future, I guess? Because I mean, I follow you on Facebook and stuff. I do, and honestly, I see some of those comments that those people put on there, and I cringe sometimes. So I'm curious where you see social media in terms of meteorology.
In the broadcast industry, it used to be my first probably 3 years of my career. If you were on Facebook at work, you were in trouble. I mean, it was, don't be on Facebook. We don't want you, that's slacking off kind of thing. And then it became, oh, we need to jump on this. And for us nowadays, 80% of the news directors who are the bosses of TV folk, they would say, if you're not out there in front of a weather event on any platform, they'll find it. Somebody that wants to know if it's going to storm, if it's going to snow, or if it's what this hurricane's going to do, they'll keep scrolling until they find it. And if they find a source they like, you've lost. So for me, it was to win on all platforms. And that's where our generation is good at it, because we have some knowledge behind it. And for me, it was Facebook and Twitter. Facebook has really taken on more of a, for me, a dominant role. But it started off with 1,000 people following you, and then you knock out a storm or walk people through a storm on the way, and then it grows to 2,000. People share your stuff. I think it's up to 120,000 now. I mean, it just snowballs. You keep getting these events going, and it's one of those things where I'm not going to let a storm, by default of my job now, I can't. If I'm on vacation, I'm expected to come back if it's a major event. And this year there's been plenty of those. My wife, was in journalism, so she gets it. I'm lucky to have somebody that understands that, find somebody that does, for you guys that are out there, because it is tough. It is tough to tell your family, hey, y'all hang out at the beach. I got to go back home for 2 or 3 days to watch this pass on through. So long story short of it is that it is everything. I mean, you've got to be on all platforms. And these days, people aren't waiting until 6 o'clock to watch the news. Now, I will say the TV is the moneymaker. That's where people are spending the money on commercials and whatnot. So it's going to be only continue to grow, is that need to be everywhere. And if you get them on Facebook, studies show they're going to watch you that night at 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock.
No, I guess I would follow up on that question and ask, so what is like a studio's expectation? So do they tell you, okay, you need to have this Facebook presence, this Instagram presence, this Twitter presence, or is it more you're kind of on your own to do that? Or how does that work?
At the beginning, it was kind of you're on your own to do it. And I saw the wave coming, and thankfully I was able to jump on that wave kind of as it was coming, because now for folks that are on it, Facebook is not growing as fast. And before the algorithms changed, I would do a Facebook Live on a storm coming, and it would somehow get to everybody's page, and I'd have 10, 12, 20,000 people watching a regular old Facebook Live. And nowadays with the new algorithms, I'm lucky to get 1,000 or 2,000, which is great. And there's a lot of eyeballs on it. But, when you're looking at a market that has almost 700,000 people in it, you've got to get to their screen somehow. And I would say now it's expected as part of your job. And whenever you get a job, you're expected to have that presence. So for those of you, be careful what you're on social media. They will find your personal they will try to find your personal. So, be cognizant of that. You're allowed to have your own personal stuff, but just make sure what's on there is what you want your future boss seeing, or your coworkers or viewers. If your grandma wouldn't like it, don't put it on there. Okay. But have some kind of presence as a weather authority or meteorologist, even though you're not, you don't have a diploma yet. Start something that's a page that's yours, not just a regular old profile. Make it Instagram, make it Twitter, and that way, whenever you go to do that, and start posting on it, stay on top of the big events, and say, we're watching this in forecasting class. Here's what I think it's going to do. Give it a shot, especially if you're going into broadcasting. These days, cell phones are so good. When I was, we didn't have that. So, get out there with your cell phone and do a quick forecast, and then go back and look at it 6 months later. Like, I really blew that one, or man, that was really good how I handled that. And when it's a bad situation, with technology these days. Terry, I see you doing it on the big stuff. Get out in front of an event, screen share some maps, be careful liability wise, or what make those disclaimers, trust your National Weather Service offices for life-saving information, throw those claims out there, but get out there in front of stuff. And then when an event's happening, a tornado warning situation or a hurricane making landfall, go live on it. That actual live stuff, even though it might be your aunt and uncle and 5 of your friends, it helps you get better.
Yeah. I think we have a question from Austin. So if he wants to unmute himself, he can ask you.
Hey, Chris.
Hi.
I was going to ask you, do you have any tips on networking with others in the field pertaining to broadcasting?
Yeah, I mean, reach out. Everybody that's in the field has been where you guys are today. And for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at without the help of other folks. So I think I speak for a lot of us in the industry. And Brad Panovich is one of a kind. He's the same way. I mean, he'd give the shirt off his back if he could. So I mean, just reaching out to them and being real with them and saying, can you look at this? How does this look? And you may take them a few days, but just reaching out and being bold and just saying, hey, if you ever have a job or if you ever have something. And I will say a lot of these jobs are in smaller markets, whether it be in media and broadcast or not. You're probably going to have to move to a town you don't necessarily care about, but that's how you get to where you're going in these type situations.
Mm-hmm. And then Zach has typed in the chat. He asks, can you elaborate further on the balancing act you have to perform in appealing to different news affiliates, which all have different priorities? I think you were alluding to that before with what you said about Fox.
Yeah.
And then different skill sets you have to emphasize and expand upon that you might not have thought of before you entered the field.
Sure. I guess the affiliates thing, I work for an NBC affiliate, and though that's the programming we show at night, they don't dictate what I say or what I show or what our news shows. We do have to show the Today Show and nightly news and everything, but it's generally a branding thing. So I was at the Fox affiliate in Charlotte, but then I also went to the Fox affiliate in Nashville, and it was completely different mindsets. It's all where you're at in the country. Fox Charlotte wanted to be the cool kid in class. They didn't want to talk about CAPE or vorticity. They wanted to talk about, is it going to lightning or is it not? It was so dumbed down that I couldn't shine as a meteorologist, and for me that was frustrating. And I was able to expand on that in Nashville, but. Forecasting would be a skill set you really need to emphasize, and something I regret not doing. And is Dr. Easton still there?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yep.
Great. I wish I would have taken his tropical class. And I think he had a severe weather class that it came time to senior year, and it just was one of those decisions I had to make, and maybe things wouldn't have ended up the way they are now for me. But I don't know if I could have handled those and traveling like I did, but those were things I had to learn along the way, and to get the seal, it's AMS seal, and nowadays it's a lot harder than it used to be. The requirements are a lot harder. You have to pass the test, and then you have to, and you can look up the test online. There's 100 questions, and some of them are so easy, and then some of them are like, gosh, I haven't thought about that in years. But in 2010, I was able to get my seal of approval, and that required a lot of revisiting some of those classes. I had to learn a lot of the severe stuff kind of on my own. We cover it in synoptics. You have that groundwork there, but I think Dr. Easton really dives down next level, I think. And I think that's something that I wish I would have done. Maybe it would have made things a little bit easier for me, but living in Savannah, Georgia, got plenty of experience tracking hurricanes and learning from the chief there. You get it by default of working, or, you're going to sink if you don't. So you got to learn it one way or the other, but I think that would have helped me out. So take as many of those as you can, even though at the time it's probably going to seem like a lot of work.
Maybe instead of baseball, you should have taken tropical meteorology. Just saying. It was probably your advisor's fault. That's probably what happened.
Man.
Sorry, you still have to deal with my sass. So I think Connor has a question, and we'll have time for like one or two more questions, and then we'll have to wrap this up. Connor.
Yeah, hey Chris, thanks for doing this. So really appreciate it. All right, so I kind of have like a multi-part question, I guess. The two questions I have kind of go together, and that's I'm kind of curious from your perspective, where do you think the field is kind of going in the future? Now I know like specifically broadcasting in terms per se, like where do you see the field going and progressing and growing? And then also, what do you think the field needs in terms of like innovations and public outreach, public education? You know, I'm sure you get plenty of social media comments that are interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. And you got to ignore those. That, you know, I have to talk my mom off the ledge, and my wife's kind of over the years gotten a little. As you have to be numb to it, because there are people out there, and you know, I don't know what's going on at their home, so you never know what's going on behind the scenes. So I'm not going to jump on them, but it takes some restraint sometimes. But I think the field is headed. You know, I feel confident. 2 or 3 years ago, people would have told you TV is dying and the internet's going up. That's not been the case. In fact, our viewership over the past few years has steadily gone up, especially with COVID world. People want to know what's going on, even though they say, I got to tune out the news. And sometimes you got to. But TV is not going anywhere in my career, I don't think. I think, will I have to embrace this? And those that don't embrace digital and will fall down to the wayside. There are certain people. Brad Panovich is probably one of the best in Charlotte. But you just got to jump on the new things and new innovation. And I think the National Weather Service is catching up. There are a lot of stuff that's so regiment with the National Weather Service and NOAA in general. They have to wait until this happens for them to issue this. And I think a lot of that probably over the coming years will probably fall down. I think one thing they're talking about doing the end of this year, and maybe y'all have covered this in class, is less watches, warnings, and advisories, kind of dumbing it down, simplifying it, just one flood alert. And in TV, we have done study after study with focus groups to say that people don't understand the difference in an advisory or this. So, when there's something bad coming, we really simplify it and say, this is an alert day. And a lot of stations will make it gimmicky, and I'm not all about doing that. If it's an alert day, it's going to be bad for us. The hurricane coming in last week, 2 weeks ago, or a big severe event. So there has to be a big enough event to do it. And that just lets people know. And then I'll cover the watches and warnings that the National Weather Service has. But I think simplifying it, keeping it simple is where the business is heading. And just give me what I need to know on whatever platform I'm on.
I actually have one really quick question in terms of forecasting itself. So the thing I've noticed with the Weather Service and with a lot of TV studios, especially in Charlotte, and I know Brad has done a lot of this, is rather than a very deterministic forecast of saying, all right, we're going to see 2 to 4 inches of snow, they give us a probability graph of, okay, there's a 30% chance of getting 1 to 2 inches of snow. And is that something you see more of now, is more of a probability distribution? Is that something the public is able to grasp, I guess?
Yeah, the problem is, the studies show that they don't grasp even the probability on a 7-day forecast. And for us, that's where we have to come in and educate them. So I think, yes, you're right. I think it's how you display it. Brad does a great job with his maps at saying there's a higher chance we're going to see 2 to 4 inches than 6 to 8. But could we see 6 to 8? Yes. It's how you explain that. And a lot of the old timers or some of the 10 years ago, that would never happen. It would just be a broad brush, range. I try to be specific where I can carefully, but yes, explaining that, hey, there's still a lot of uncertainty in this forecast. I'm going to narrow it down as best I can for you. Just being honest with them and transparent. Before it was, we can't let them know we don't know. Now I'm going to tell you, hey, this is uncertain at this time. Like Ada down in the Gulf right now. Is this front going to scoop it up? Is it not? Is it going to rain all day Saturday and Sunday? There's still a lot. This one's an uncertain one. So communicating that and just being real with them. And I think people appreciate that.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. So I guess there's one more question, since we only have 2 minutes left. And I think this is a good one too, so you seem to really love where you are right now, but is this where you see yourself? And be careful saying old timers, because in 10 years, you're going to be one of those old timers. So anyway, so is this, would you see yourself moving on someday somewhere else? Or do you think this is where you're going to stay for the long haul? And I know that's kind of a loaded question, but
it is. By old timers, I mean, do I right click or do I left click this thing? There are not many old timers still working today, but there are some out there, anyhow, you get what I'm saying. That is a good question. I think for me, having a family now, my oldest is in school. I think we're where we want to be. I work at a really good station, a really good company that really supports me, lets me be kind of who I want to be without, kind of hammering down who they want you to be kind of thing. I do have to meet their guidelines and everything. But, at the point where I'm at in my career and the fact that I've achieved this job, I think I'll probably hang out here for a while. And I think this is where we're going to make our home. I do love Charlotte. I do love Atlanta, but I think Greenville's home for us.
And I would just reemphasize one of the points you made earlier, that so much of our field is really enjoying what you do. And that means so much, versus, other fields where you can go into it and make some money, but you're just unhappy for a third of your life because that's what you're doing. So I reemphasize that. So, well, I just want to personally thank you for doing all this, Chris, and showing up. And I think Tanner has one or two things he wants to say, but thank you, Chris. It was good seeing you.
Yeah, absolutely. And, when things kind of slack up with COVID, I'd love to come and visit and see you guys. And if there's anything I can do for you, I mean, honestly, my email's out there, Facebook me, Instagram me, anything like that. I'd love to help you. If I didn't get to your question, I'd love to get back to you one way or the other. But yeah, just keep on trucking, guys.
Yeah. Once this all settles down, you'll have to visit campus, and we'll do this in person.
That'd be fun.
Then you can ask me some questions.
Yes, I'll raise my hand in the back.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you, everyone. Again, Chris, thank you so much. I know, Terry, thank you for moderating, but we really appreciate you doing this, Chris. I hope everyone enjoyed it. Really appreciate everyone attending. And like I said, when you come to campus, we look forward to seeing you in person and getting a chat with you then.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Tanner. And thanks for everybody out there. And I love my time at UNC Charlotte. So you guys enjoy it. It goes by fast. And when you're 10 years looking back, it's like, man, I should have enjoyed that a little more. I should have done that. So just go have fun and enjoy class, enjoy it all.
Perfect. And real quick thing, please make sure you, if you could fill out a brief evaluation we'll be sending out. Just want to get your feedback just moving forward and hope we can do more things like this. But again, it was awesome, Chris. Really enjoyed it.